Hi and welcome. My name is Sam from Dopa². It's great to have you. I just want to talk to you about resilience. The Oxford Languages defines it as the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. Okay. Personally, I don't believe that resilience can be acquired through tough circumstances. And let me give you some examples why I believe that. Growing up, when I was 7, we moved from Germany to Australia, and then our parents got divorced. Later, my mother remarried, and our stepdad took us back to Germany. And it was at the age of 16 when I lost my mother to cancer. Then my stepdad remarried and moved back to Australia. My sisters also moved to Australia, and this left me alone in Germany during high school. I then had to decide after high school, was I going to stay in Germany or move back to Australia? And I decided to move to Australia to do Bible college. After Bible college, I got a full-time job at the church, and it was at this time of my life where I felt I had regained control and I was happy. Life was good, I was in a great job, in a great church, and I was developing. Unfortunately, then my stepdad passed away of cancer as well. And this eventually led to me having a burnout. All of the different life accumulated pains and traumas made it so that I couldn't sustain a full-time job. I broke down, I had to quit my job, and I loved that job. And I did some counseling, did some thinking, and when I felt good enough, I did the only thing that I knew how, and that was start a new full-time job. Fast forward, I was in a new church, in a new job, and I found a person and I got married. We had a child, and at this stage, I want to stop and ask the question, was I resilient? No. Was I tough? No. I was broken and hurting, and not being tough, instead I was hard. I wasn't resilient, I was defensive. And it was, of course, through marriage and fatherhood that I had the feedback loop to tell me that I was in danger this time of burnout again, but I wouldn't just lose a job, I could lose my marriage and my children. I didn't want it, of course, so I had to start asking myself some hard questions. How could I change? How could I get or become resilient now? Life circumstances hadn't made me resilient. Counseling hadn't done it for me. Was the answer more counseling? Was the answer throwing myself into more hardship? It didn't seem to make sense. So 2020 came, and here was a new chance, not just for me, I think for everybody, but 2020 taught me that just another circumstance, just another hard time couldn't be the answer. I didn't respond differently. It was the same thing, just a different season. So 2021, I had a new opportunity to reflect. In fact, in this season of my life, in 2021, I didn't even hear from God. I felt isolated and I felt alone and I felt the world was quiet. But this was the first time in my life where I didn't run away from this feeling. I knew I wanted to change. I knew I wanted to become a different person. And I felt like this was a gift from God to me to ask some of the hard questions. And so I did. I did long walks in 2021 and I asked some of the really hard questions. To me at the time, they felt taboo. Like I couldn't ask those questions, but I did. Was God real? Did Jesus love me? Was I just an emotional Christian? Was it all fake? And I emerged out of that season with a knowing that God had placed inside of me the imperishable seed of faith. Having asked all the questions, and of course, I'm making a very long story very short, I had come to the realization that God has indeed saved me and that I was indeed his child. And so this led to the start of 22 and a new approach. I thought, okay, I do believe in God. God does love me. Maybe I can get resilience from him. I'm going to do it in a way I've never done it before. So in 2022, I started praying and reading the Bible for 3 hours every morning. Yes, that's radical, but I was doing something new to try and have something new. You know, you can't do the same thing and expect different results. So I was doing something different, hoping that they would give me new and different results. In the first few weeks, it was hard, of course. Try and put your phone down for 5 minutes and you know what I mean. But after about 3 or 4 weeks, God started showing up. In my room, which was empty apart from a couch, I had no phone to stimulate me. It was just me and the four walls, and now God. He didn't show up physically and he didn't speak to me audibly, but the way he manifested was exactly how I had always needed and wanted it. He would come upon me in what I would describe as liquid gold or warm honey, head to toe. His love would just pour over me to the point where I would often weep and cry for minutes on end. Sometimes, instead of crying, he would put a joy inside of me and I would laugh for minutes on end. There was no one to tell a joke apart from him. So it wasn't anything to do externally. It was all coming from God in the room and inside of my heart. And then his peace. That was the thing that was always there. But sometimes it would intensify to the point where pain in my body would fade away. And I would sit in my chair and just soak up the goodness and the presence of God. This became so amazing and would happen maybe 3 or 4 times a week that on the mornings that it didn't happen, I've got to be honest, I was disappointed. It kept me hooked, of course. I had discovered the secret to life. This was it. I didn't need alcohol anymore. I didn't need masturbation anymore. All I needed was God. And he didn't need me to do anything but just be there in the mornings. I didn't need television. I didn't need external stimulus. I just needed to quiet my soul and let him come. Wow, what a journey. Even better still, about 6 months later, I noticed how I no longer got disappointed when God didn't manifest. Instead, I realized that he was always there, always working, and it was even in the times where I didn't feel him or didn't hear him or didn't see him, that he was doing perhaps some of the deepest and most profound work. So my walk with him became more stable, stronger, more intimate. And now it wasn't only in the mornings that I felt this peace and this comfort and joy. He started to teach me how I could find comfort in him throughout any part of the day. If I was feeling stressed at work, I could steal away for a quick bathroom break, and in 2 minutes, I could seek my God and he would give me peace. I would even hear from him in my dreams. He was talking to me 24/7. He was available all the time, and he was teaching me how to strengthen myself in him. 2022 came and went. 2023, the habit continued. 2024 came and went, and I started to hear from God very profoundly. Now I had discovered that resilience was a gift from God. He had made me tough in the quiet place, and toughness and resilience was going to be there to help me navigate difficulties, and not the other way around. Difficulties didn't help me build resilience, but resilience from God was there to help me navigate tough times. The test of my resilience came in 2025. In 2024, through circumstances and dreams and visions, and also confirmations through friends, family, and pastors, we had felt the call and heard the call of God to move to Germany as a family. Another big move. 3 big things have happened this year. Of course, the move, a huge change in circumstance, not just for me, but for my wife who didn't speak a word of German, for my daughters who didn't speak a word of German, for me, of course, as well, readjusting and having to take on the whole administrative burden because my wife doesn't speak any German and can't read or write. I have had to do everything. Then, the next big challenge of 2025 has been about the business. I felt God say, don't prioritize finding a job. Instead, be creative. Do something new. Get out of your comfort zone. And that has been probably my biggest test this year. Can I, or how will I respond to a circumstance in life for the first time in my life where it's not about a regular paycheck? And I went through quite a tough period here in Germany, and God has gotten me through it, where now I am a lot less fearful than I've ever been before. But I couldn't have got to this point that I am today in 2025 if God hadn't, in the previous 3.5 years, built in me a resilience that now has led to the capacity for me to withstand and to recover quickly from this difficulty of loss of regular income. Okay, and the third big test that's happened to me and my family this year was a big car crash. We were driving in a 70-kilometer zone. I was on my lane on the right-hand side in Germany. Next to me was a barrier because there's a train track, so I couldn't get any further to the right. We were driving 5 minutes from home, and in the last second, an oncoming driver swerved from her lane onto ours. We were involved in a head-on collision in a 70 zone. Fortunately, both passengers of the oncoming car survived, and my family also survived. We were all in the car. Our daughters received no injuries. It was an absolute miracle. My wife received 4 broken ribs. I had a small fracture of my left lower back, and other than that, just bruising. Both cars burnt down and are burnt down on the scene, completely destroyed. Now, we believe it was an attack from the enemy. He probably has viewed our life over the last 12 months of obedience to the voice of God, doing something scary, stepping out of the boat onto the water, and he probably went all in. He played his trump card, and it didn't work out for him. So rather than this circumstance taking us into a bad place, into a place of doubt and fear and any other form of negativity, it's bolstered our faith. It's given us a new spring in our step. It's given us excitement for the future. We know we are in the right place at the right time, following the call of God. So, these responses that we as a family have had in this season to these new challenges, bigger than we've faced before, are evidence to me that God has indeed put resilience on the inside of us and has made us finally tough. We're not fighting each other, we are united, and we are living a life that pleases God, living a life of light and love towards our neighbours. My wife, through the crash, in fact, finally, and she could tell you in her own words, has found her voice of evangelism. So she is now finally willing and able to step out of her comfort zone and speak to strangers about God, whether it was the nurse or the doctors, the lady on the way to school. She now speaks to everyone about Jesus. She's been asking for this gift, and it's the crash, ironically, if you want to put it that way. But thank God, the crash was a turning point for her, a confirmation for her that God is real, God rescued us, but more than rescued us, God has called us, and God is faithful to preserve us. And so now she's on fire, and she's preaching the gospel, and she's seeing people respond. And so there it is, resilience. I don't believe it's something that is acquired through difficult circumstances. I believe it's a gift from God. Let's have a very quick look at a passage from the Bible. It's a famous one. It says in 1 Samuel 30, verse 6, "And David was greatly distressed, because the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of every man grieved for his sons and daughters. But David found strength in the Lord his God." I can resonate with David. Quick backstory. David had just led his troops to fight a war in a different area and had now come back to his hometown, and his hometown had been raided by a different band of raiders and had been completely looted, and all of the women and children had been taken away, and the livestock. And so it was in this circumstance that the troops that were with David were so grieved and now pointed the finger at David and wanted to stone him. And what was David to do? There was nothing he could do in his own self. He couldn't talk his way out of it. He couldn't try and calm the men down. So the only thing he knew to do was to turn to his God and find strength in his God. And that is the secret and the key to resilience. How can you be tough in the face of grave danger? You need to have a power greater than yourself. And Jesus Christ can and is that power, can be and is that power. And let me finish with one last verse. Walking on water. We all know it. There's a passage in the Bible where Jesus walks on the water. Well, he's the Son of God. We sort of assume he could do that. But a guy called Peter, one of his disciples, a friend of Jesus, sees Jesus walking on the water, and he says to Jesus, "If it's you, Jesus, say the word and I will come." And so Jesus says, "Come." And that's how we felt in 2024 when God said to us, come to Germany. For us, that was a stepping out of the boat onto the water moment. And so let's read the passage. It's in Matthew 14, verse 29 to 31. Jesus says, "Come," Jesus said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the strength of the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, "Lord, save me." Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and took hold of Peter. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" Okay, so Peter walked on water. That's pretty amazing. But Jesus said little faith. So little faith can cause you to walk on water. Imagine what big faith can do. So the lesson that my wife and I and our children have taken from this passage into 2025 and beyond is that if you are going to step out of the boat and trust in God and walk on water, then the good attitude to have is to keep your eyes on Jesus and not to doubt, but to stay in faith. Yes, the hope that we have is Jesus. He will save us. Peter started to sink when he did start to doubt, but Jesus was faithful to rescue him. However, he had no need of sinking. He could have kept walking on water. So let that be a lesson to you and me. First of all, how do you get resilience? Go to God. How do you walk on water? Keep your eyes on God. Keep your faith in God. Don't look at circumstances. Don't defer to doubt and fear, but stay tough and stay resilient, the gifts of God. If you want to know more about how to engage with God and how to become a friend of God and how to let God train you in resilience, you can watch my other video. At the end of that other video, I go over how you can become a friend of God and how you can engage with the love of God, which will also teach you how to become a Christian and how to be saved. So that video should come up, I think, over here somewhere, and you should be able to click on that and hear more about how to become a Christian. Also, if you have any requests for prayer or would like to ask any questions, please leave your prayer requests or questions in the comments below. And if I have the time and capacity, I will gladly pray for you and answer your questions. Okay, God bless, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.